просто.
All right, I'm here.
I'm too. Looks like all is working. Is this a private session right now, or we're waiting for participants?
Hi again. The participants are there. We are waiting for Michael to join because everybody else has already joined, and then we will start. Our Gohar is here. She will do a short introduction first. Then we will start. We will just see when Michael will join.
Arjan, you just introduce the topic and I'll take it from there and just allow people to switch between channels if they need translation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll do the introduction myself and for the panel.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I am sorry, it says that Michael is having problems to join.
The live broadcasting is not on yet, right?
No. No.
Okay.
Vadim, you have a very sophisticated setup. It looks unbelievable, the number of screens.
It's a virtual screen, so yeah, my thought is quite minimalistic, so I decided to go into the other direction, you know, to have some diversity in life.
Yes, you're product agnostic, let's say.
We changed the Van Gogh.
So let's start before Michael joins us. Մեր հայերեն լեզվով ունկնդրողների համար զգուշացնեմ, որ մենք ունենք սինխրոն թարգմանության option-ը, եթե ստեղ տեսնեք կա թարգմանություն interpretation կոչակը, եթե սեղմեք ռուսերեն դրոշը, եթե սեղմեք, կարող եք արդեն հայերեն հանգիստ լսել, ուղղակի Zoom-ը չունի հայերենի դրոշը, դրա համար չեն կարողանում այդ ռուսերենից ստիպված օգտվում. Let's switch to English. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is a very unique panel. We are all in different time zones. So thank you very much for becoming part of the ECF 2020, which was organized by the joint efforts of the EPIC at AUA, EU for Business and GIZ. So our talk will be how your global success starts with self-transformation. And let me remind you that EPIC is already accepting the startup applications for its fall 2020 incubation program. And this year, for the first time, we give an opportunity for everyone to apply. So if you have a startup idea, go ahead and check our website or follow our Facebook page for more details. I give the floor to Mr. Gulbudakian, and let's start this panel.
Hello, everyone. I welcome you, whether you're in Russia, Armenia, Kazakhstan, US, or Argentina, different time zones. I'm Karan Gulbudakian. I will be moderating this amazing panel today. And very quickly about me, this is a very interesting topic which takes you through self-transformation in different paths. So personally, I had over 7 professional lives, I call it. It took me from being government official in 2 countries to working for a large corporation, being executive, then being consultant in Big 4, transforming into quite different paths, becoming investor, helping startups, being on a path, doing tax policy, tax enforcer, changing legislations, driving strategic partnerships, which transform not only specific companies, the entire cities and even regions. So when we look at the successful people we love or admire, we respect, typically we see just the tip of the iceberg, and we quite big time overlook what it took them to get where they are. We overlooked typically the critical importance of self-transformation these people are going through. Every journey starts from within. Regardless, that journey is to take on a new career, or within organization move from employee to manager to big executive, or if you employee, you want to start a journey as an entrepreneur. So still, the first moment, the most critical moment is the transformation which starts from within you. People who join me today have achieved major victories in their lives, professional lives. In different countries, they, through different careers, different level in different cultures. And they are here today to share their own stories. Stories which took them from taking risks, the stories of perseverance, fighting fears and cultural stigmas, and most important, the courage to take the step forward. So with that, I would like to introduce the panel, and my dear panelists will do roughly 1 minute introduction. So we'll, let's say, dive into the discussion. Please, Michael Koshukjan.
Hi, everyone. Good evening in Yerevan. So I'm Michael Koshukjan. I'm a professor at AUA in the College of Business, and I'm also director of EPIC, the host of this seminar. So briefly, let me say my career has not been a straight line. It's been a zigzag. And just a quick summary, I got a PhD in biophysics and biochemistry, decided to go to business school. After business school, I was offered a job in a management training program at a large pharmaceutical company, a big prestigious position. A year earlier, Armenia became independent, so I took a route that no one expected, and I ended up going to Armenia. And I joined AUA with the founding team, the founders of AUA, and stayed in Armenia and worked at AUA for 7 years. Then came back to the US, resumed my career in biotechnology, started my own company, and ran that company for 10 years. After 10 years, that company was acquired by a large multinational pharmaceutical services company. And I decided to return to Armenia. And now that's where I am now for 3 years teaching at AUA. So those of you that think that a career is something that you plan in a straight line, trajectory, I'm the exact example of not being that.
And that's great. And we'll be talking about this. We also have Lucineira Azarian. Please.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone in Armenian and all of the regions that might be dialing in into this call. Lucineira Azarian, I am Vice President of Finance and Chief Audit Executive at GoPro Corporation. I was born and raised in Armenia until the age of 17 when I moved to United States for educational opportunities. I did my bachelor in Ohio, and I did my master's later at the Haas UC Berkeley School of Business. I have an interesting perspective because while my career has changed, my concentration and focus has remained very similar. I started with microeconomics, applied economics, mathematical economics, and finance, and stayed in that field, finance, accounting, structured finance, corporate aspects of financing. And while the jobs have changed, the companies have changed. I went from a very large publicly traded international company where I was managing all of European operations and finances in EMEA for several years, and moved to Deloitte Consulting. I was on the advisory and consulting financial services, pre-IPO services at Deloitte in San Francisco. And then now I'm at the GoPro where I joined pre-IPO and so helped the company get ready for the IPO, through the IPO and post-IPO. So while the career trajectory is different, and my expertise comes from international experience, what I bring to the table is deep understanding of all aspects of finance, from pre-seed all the way to a very large global international conglomerates, setting up of business systems, interaction of internal functions, as well as very deep international experience, particularly in the European region. And so, you know, I love being part of this conversation and adding a perspective of someone who is deeply concentrated professionally, but had multiple experience in different companies and consulting aspects of the professional environment.
Thank you, Lucine. The next one is Vadim Nazarov, who also brings quite very special perspective and trajectory, I would say. Vadim, please.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone. I'm Vadim Nazarov, CEO and co-founder of Immunomind, computational immunology startup focused on democratizing precision medicine. Every hero's journey is about series of challenges and opportunities. And my series of challenges and opportunities started approximately 8 years ago when I started working in one of the top Russian laboratories focused on immunology. I started my journey deep dive into bioinformatics, immunology, and machine learning with this idea of helping people, especially with the focus on autoimmunity. After several years, I parted my ways with my laboratory because I wanted to focus on the clinical application of immunology and machine learning. And even before I finished my PhD, I organized my own research group that eventually grown into my startup. Through the next several years, I worked as a data scientist, as a team lead of data science and director of AI in my previous startup. Somewhere along this way, I got a bachelor in psychology and psychoanalysis. So I bring on the table systems thinking and interdisciplinary thinking to challenge problems from different perspectives, and not only from perspectives that we are very familiar, you know, from from the market size, from the value, but also from perspectives that are deep within people. Thank you.
Great. And just to add also for the introduction, currently I'm the founder of Strategic Value Ventures, is a specialized firm based in San Francisco, and also the first ambassador and key advisor at Berkeley Skydeck, which is very unique global entrepreneurship hub and accelerator. And Lucine is also advisor at Berkeley Skydeck. And through our collaboration with Vadim's company Immunomind is currently part of the acceleration cohort in the same Berkeley Skydeck. So we have quite interesting perspective and trajectories. So with that, maybe we'll start, I'll start with a question, self-reflection, maybe. So when you look back, I mean, where you are right now, and you looking back when you just started your career, would you imagine being where you are currently with the success or this kind of diversity of perspectives in how Michael described non-linear approach? Lucy.
Yeah, so it's interesting because, you know, I came to the US in 1994 and I graduated from physics and mathematics with a background in Armenia. At that time, as you can imagine, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, very early stages of Armenia's independence and kind of infrastructure built out, the concept of a career in finance was non-existent, at least for a 17-year-old myself. So when I did come to the US, my initial concentration was in applied mathematics and economics. I didn't even know about all aspects of financial career. You know, my stretch goal was to be an economist that understands different systems, whether that's socialist system of economic management or, you know, capitalist system. That was my primary interest, where I merged the background in mathematics and where I got scholarship actually to do my bachelor was because I was a female in science, in mathematics, and, you know, had science background, but I stretched it into economic theory. But then as I started the bachelor degree, I realized that the world of corporate finance and all aspects of finance, how that interacts with broader macro and microeconomic considerations, and that really piqued my interest. So to answer your question, Karen, I never really envisioned that I will be in this profession in 20-some years, 25 years now since I left Armenia. And, but I was on the trajectory that prepared me for that career. And I think that deep understanding of fundamentals was critical to be able to continue on the trajectory while the geographies had changed, the countries had changed. The cultural context and the environment with which I worked and operated was very different from country to country, but the offering and the background that I brought was grounded in what education I received in Armenia, and then how I was able to convert and transform the knowledge into value.
Michael, how about yourself? I mean, you're coming from quite a different side. You started, I mean, you are from US and transferring to Armenia. Mm-hmm. Take us through this mindset. First of all, tell us whether this was your kind of even vision, but also take us through this very special mindset. You came to Armenia in '91 when it was pretty much the time, really dark time, dark literally. No electricity, no food, economic blockade. I mean, just imagine, it's just unimaginable. And you're taking this risk. So can you describe like the state? Why would you, I mean, what was going on in your mind?
So let me take a step back first and set up the story. And the bottom line that I would say is life doesn't go as planned. Okay, everyone tries to plan their life, but it never goes like planned. So I'm born in the US and had never been to Armenia until the earthquake. So I was in graduate school in New York doing a PhD And after the earthquake, there was a group of young Armenians, a trip organized to help in the earthquake zone. So in the summer of 1989, I was doing my PhD research, and this group, it was called Yergiya Mushaguit, Land and Culture, was organized, a whole group of European and American, Armenian Americans going and working in the earthquake zone. We actually built homes. And my thesis advisor says, you're going to Armenia to build homes instead of staying here and doing your research? What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? And then the next year, I decided to do it again. And actually, my brother, Ada, came with me. And again, he was going crazy. Why are you wasting your time building homes in Armenia? And after I came back, I gave him the bad news. I said, oh, by the way, I decided that I'm not going to do research anymore. I'm going to go to business school. And so I ended up going to business school. And in the 90s, it was very rare for people with PhDs to go to business school. So it took quite a lot of courage to do that, because again, a lot of people were saying, what are you doing? You're ruining your career. Why are you going to business school? As I mentioned in the introduction, as I was finishing business school, I was ready to take a very senior entry-level job in a prestigious pharmaceutical company, a management training program. And then the founders of AUA called me and they said, we're building this university, will you come out? And so tough decision to make. And my family, and I grew up in a very nationalist family, and we spoke Armenian at home and everything. And even my family, who raised us to love Armenia, started saying, wait a second, you're going to ruin your career. Why are you going to Armenia? No, don't go to Armenia. Just work in the US for a couple of years, make some money, get some career experience, and then you can do what you want. But Armenia becomes independent only once, right? Hopefully only once. Actually, this is the second time. And at the same time, the founders of AUA were building the university. And I said to myself, what better opportunity to work in Armenia and help start, a startup university. So in some ways, it was actually an entrepreneurial role. And so again, with courage and with transforming myself and overcoming everyone saying no, just like entrepreneurs do. Everyone was saying, don't do it, don't do it. I ended up doing it. And I will say it was the best decision of my life. And so I'll leave it at that.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Moving to Vadim. Vadim, you essentially been a researcher, scientist, and you decided at some point that it's no longer for you, not that you want to leave completely, but you transform essentially from researcher to entrepreneur. So can you take us through this journey in the environment you were in, the cultural, the stigmas, the kind of fears which you went through, or the risks you were taking at that point?
Right. Thank you, Karen. And I think that's a very interesting question. And of course, I didn't think about entrepreneurship 8 years ago or 9 years when I started my research career. I believe on the very high level, my path is about learning more and more about myself in terms of strong and weak sides. And what's important here, it's also about being very honest with yourself, because the decision to leave my laboratory was extremely hard decision for me. And the reason for that was that I started to see that I think differently than everyone around me. I focus more on the systems, on how systems work, instead of focusing just only on your very exciting but still research. And I started to think that can I do differently? Can I help people with my research instead of just publishing publications, and I had quite many publications, and all my friends from Europe and the US was well, they were amazed that I was able to publish so much, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for me as a person. So you can think about it as a start for different experiments, for different tries to tries in different areas to see what is good and what is not. And what's interesting, I believe I consider myself lucky, is that if I'm doing something that I'm strong in it, I'm successful in it. If I don't do something that I'm strong in it, I'm not successful. And why I am considering myself lucky is because precisely of the cultural layer. Because in Russia there is there is not a very nice view of entrepreneurship, and there is a huge disconnection between research and entrepreneurship. My friends, my parents, my larger family, they are very supportive in me and as an entrepreneur. In contrast to several my other friends I've seen different situations. Let's put it that way. So I want to stress the importance here between reflecting on your sizes, reflecting on your personality, and alignment of it with a much larger cultural layer. And if you find conflicts there, and of course we'll find conflicts there, you need to reflect on it, and it's extremely hard.
Lucine, thank you, Vadim. Lucine, you, I mean, not only successful woman executive, you are also part of big organization, which International Armenian organization, women organization. You are also a big part of kind of family. I mean, you're running big family. So can you take us through this, I mean, sacrifices which you made throughout your career, balancing family, social life, the professional life, and trying to juggle this? So what are these type of sacrifices you went through, and what really made you internally, like what kind of strengths, internal strengths was giving you to carry on, essentially?
Thank you, Karen. Yes, so, you know, it's a long journey. I would say earlier on, and kind of my natural personality, I'm a pleaser and I am focused on excellence. So the combination of the two in the early stages of my career gave me a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things, but it was also, you know, I was very, very stretched. As my family grew, as my titles and roles and responsibilities had expanded, I became a lot more focused about where I involve and where is my involvement most valuable, and whether I am the only right person that can do that can contribute extraordinary to that particular situation. And so while I'm still very open and supportive and you know, take on a lot of support roles where I can move the needle quickly, where I really spend my time and I focus on those kind of major activities, major responsibilities, where I can bring my entire self, where I believe I contribute and provide kind of extraordinary value, and that's my inner standard. So not perfection, you know, because as I realized over the years that kind of pure perfectionism is different from a strive for excellence. So mentally, I allow myself to make mistakes and because, you know, I'm taking a lot of risks and I'm expanding opportunities and areas in which I'm involved. but I also never let go of a standard of excellence. If I come into the conversation, if I work on certain things, I have some of the highest standards for myself, sometimes much higher than others have for me. That's been very helpful in general to set a brand for myself, to also, truly feel like I'm contributing. At the same time, it takes very high degree of multitasking and actually managing time, managing commitments, knowing when to say no and how to say no. And I think it's a major skill to be recognized and then developed. It took me 20 some years of almost daily work to combine naturally pleasing personality, where I was growing up in Armenia in a very warm family with a very warm social setting. I was very much of a, yes, I will do anything for everybody at any time, to, yes, I can be helpful. Can I make a difference? And if I make a difference, is it substantial? Am I the only right person in that context to make that difference? Or is someone else better positioned and would really appreciate that opportunity? So I learned to say no. I learned to balance the needs of the family with the needs of corporate and board work. And I am highly productive. I think that's another skill, the opportunity to evaluate your productivity, your time management, and knowledge of who to go to ask the right questions, to get the right answers, to pull in quick decisions and hopefully right decisions. Is a skill and takes time, but mentally, we're talking about transformation, self-transformation. This was a major self-transformation for me over the last 25 years.
Thank you, Lucy. This is where it starts. The start is within you. What is really important for you, your values, your views, your principles, what drives you, motivation and mission which you're on. And we covered this pretty well. I would like to also ask you about, besides internal side, what really supports and kind of empowers you to go on? Michael, in your particular case, I know the family was very critical in terms of taking steps or preparing for these steps, not only mentally, but this is endurance. This is a long journey. Can you just shortly describe that state? I mean, what really helped you? You're on mute, Michael.
Sorry. Thanks, Ganen. So the family really provides the foundation for all of us in terms of cultural, in terms of values and other things. So my parents were immigrants to the US. When they came to the US, they didn't know English, and they worked very hard to give us a normal living and to provide my brother and I many opportunities. We ended up in the end going to the best universities and doing very well. But what they gave us more than anything else was, I think, courage, self-confidence, and some of that also comes from our history. Let's look at our Armenian history, where we have had adversity one after the other and difficulty, and we've always been able to conquer that. And we've heard from our family stories about us overcoming difficulty and adversity. So what it does is it gives you some courage and ability to have self-confidence, and also what has given me the ability to do self-analysis. And you're learning during your whole journey. This is all a journey, and it depends on your experiences. If you don't have significant experiences, you'll learn about yourself maybe a little later. If early in your life you have significant experiences and you're exposed to things, both good and bad, you'll learn lessons earlier in your life, and that will help guide you in the future. And so I guess from my various experiences, and they built on top of each other, it gave me the self-confidence and the courage to do things when everyone is saying don't do it, which is actually the biggest characteristic of an entrepreneur. We always say, if you're going to create something new, to create something different as an entrepreneur, everyone is going to say, oh, others have already done that. Oh, you can't do it. It's too hard. Oh, you're not prepared. You don't have enough experience. Everyone will say no. And so it takes the entrepreneur themselves to have enough self-confidence in themselves to be able to break through that and move forward.
Great. Vadim, in your case, this transformation, breaking away from kind of own culture in immersing in quite different, what really preparing you right now for the global expansion, for the global launch, essentially. You are currently part of Skydeck, and just quickly describe how this new environment really transforming you individually and transforming your company, your co-founders and the company to develop these really strategic capabilities. Take us in a couple of words.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. So my high-level understanding is that you always a center of different layers of culture. You have your own family culture. You have your friends' culture. You have, well, your city culture, and you have your nation culture. And what are you doing in this journey is that you are trying to find values and values that you find resonating with you, and values which are not resonating and you don't want to follow them. The problem here is that it is all unconscious. All these values, all these parts of your psyche are in your unconscious. So sometimes you need some interesting external experience to make sure you pay your attention to these values that were hidden before. So in my case, our team from Russia got into a US-based startup accelerator, and it is very interesting and very transforming to see what are the values in the US in contrast to values in Russia on the entrepreneurial cultural level in the first place. And the difference is that the whole system of education, the whole system of even relationships or business ethics or even deep relationships, it is all based on these very deep values. And all three of us, all three co-founders, found these values are much more resonating with us, especially because we like to look into things deeply. We like to self-reflect. I can go for hours about Russian culture. Yeah, sorry, it's one of my favorite topic, and it's one of my favorite topic because it deeply touches me. Well, on the mental level and on the feelings level.
If I can summarize pretty much what I've seen in particularly case of Immunomind, Vadim and his team, but it's pretty much similar story with without exception with every startup I worked or in any global startup, even US-based startup, which went through this accelerator, and it's really the ecosystem. It's a big transformation from the tunnel vision to really expanding to see what else is going out there, what other opportunities are out there, what is really, what kind of different world, and it's really redefining, reshaping your kind of view, what's possible, what it's not. Most of the time, a lot of things are possible if you take this and that and leverage a lot of people, resources, and opportunities together.
Yeah, and I
So,
wanted to add on that
yeah.
topic of culture because, you know, having lived now in Armenia, in Russia, in obviously US, but also spending time in Europe. I was headquartered in London, but worked as leading the EMEA organization of 16 countries. There is a profoundly well-structured understanding that's required of the cultural context. And it's not about right cultures, wrong cultures, nice cultures or not. It's about the business environment that's defined by the culture of the country and then the business culture of in that country. So if you think about kind of on the two axes, you have this distribution of the cultural and business context, whether that's from risk-taking or risk aversion, the degree of trust, immediate trust versus a lot more cautiousness and kind of length that's required to build relationships in order for the trust to be established. It's direct versus less direct communications. And so majority of countries actually kind of distribute almost evenly in all the 4 quadrants. So if you look at it as kind of the two axes, risk-taking, and an ability, you know, for entrepreneurship as a function of risk-taking, and then highly productive and focused kind of academic and scientific focus versus more of kind of market sales and marketing focus. So you can build those axes and the coordinates. Each country with its own business climate fits into a certain quadrant. There are certain quadrants and cultural aspects that are more useful for entrepreneurship. So risk-taking, ability to understand the market and the appreciation of the customer in the context of what we're talking about, entrepreneurship, about structuring a product or an offering and finding your market. It's the communication and how the open is that communication. So what I would suggest that we do as, you know, as future or current entrepreneurs is that spending time on understanding in what cultural context am I operating my business, and also what cultural context I come from, which either contributes or takes away from my effectiveness in the new culture. So if you're an Armenian in an Armenian context, you know, there's certain characteristics of Armenian business culture. And if you're Russian in the Russian context versus Russian in the US context, we need to have a clear understanding where we place versus the business context in that country where we operate. And without over self-criticism, just clearly understand the delta, the gap that we need to address and work on that. So for me, I came from scientific background and more of an academic, both of my parents PhDs in scientists. But I was naturally a social extroverted person. I realized that my communication and my ability to kind of reach, call it a customer, an executive, a board member, was overly personal, but not sufficiently formally structured to be able to lead through communication. So I worked on that. I knew that I had predisposition to open communication style, but I was pulled back the way I was raised in the 70s and 80s in Armenia as a female, as a woman in scientists. I kind of fell back and was really waiting to see whether it's the right time for me to speak, whether it's the right time. Am I saying something that is truly so revolutionary that nobody would think that you know, I was not worthy of being around the table. And so I think it's that understanding of where are you operating, where you come from, where is the delta that you need to close, what is that action item plan where you need to improve your marketing, your sales, your technical knowledge, your trust building capabilities in the culture, relationship and network. All of those aspects in each country and each market are very different. And so as I worked in France and England, for example, versus when I was working with our Italian or Polish colleagues, each country required its own approach. And that was a huge learning experience for me because I had to actually deep dive into why sometimes I'm being challenged in reaching and what I need to do to truly reach the person instead of expecting them only to make a step to understand me.
I want to, first of all, tell our viewers, participants that we accept questions, so feel free to send us your questions. If we can't really have time for live, answers will follow up, but please be active and ask questions. So on continuing on this path, it's important to really self-reflect, to understand what you want. Number one, what are your goals, and kind of where you want to go. But tell me, I assume you will agree with me, just understanding will not be enough. It's necessary piece, but what will take you to the next level, what will make you to make that step, it's quite different from just understanding. Our culture in post-Soviet countries, etc., was such that we really think that we understood and that's enough. And as we see on the global scale, whether you're doing career, whether you entrepreneur within the company, you're trying to innovate, do something, or you're entrepreneur trying to really reach the global scale, it's not enough just to understand what's going on within yourself and outside. What are the steps, and maybe each of you will tell us from your personal experience, what will take to break through this? Not only understand, but take this courage and make the step forward. So, Michael, you want to start?
Sure, I can make a comment. So we've talked a lot about self-analysis and looking at your culture and your support structure and the past. And what adds, that's already difficult and complex enough. Now, what adds another level of complexity is, where do you want to go? And where you want to go is very dynamic. Every day, the world is changing. Your situation is changing. So what are some of the trends in the world that you want to be part of? What's going to happen in 5 years, especially if you're young and you have a future in front of you? How are opportunities in front of you, opening and closing? And none of this is guaranteed. Everything has different levels of risk. And so also, am I ready to take a big risk, or am I ready to take small risks? Do I join a company that's already established or start one of my own? And so it's all of this analysis that has to be done. There's no right answer. And the key is self-analysis, self-evaluation, and continuing to keep your eyes and ears open, which means doing a lot of reading, talking to people, interacting, observing the world around you, and trying to predict where you want to go. So actually, it's very difficult. It's not just courage. It's a lot of other things as well that are necessary.
Lucy and Vadim, do you want to comment, and we'll jump right into questions which are coming to us? So comment on this.
Add a quick, maybe a summary based on my experience. In this context and in general, we talk about kind of entrepreneurship, going on your own, doing your own thing, as drastically different from, being in a company or having kind of a steady job, etc. I would say it's a continuum. And, I am not an entrepreneur, but every job I had, I approached it as my own business within the organization. And when you have a mindset that if you own it, you're responsible for it, and you're going to make the best out of it, not just do your job, but do it so well that, and then market and promote and make it visible, which is the part that I had to work on. The degree of excellence and the standard you have for yourself and for the area that you own, small or large, translates into exceptional skills. And I would rather, in my opinion, had learned those skills while I had a very good stable income and exceptional mentors in large corporations, or at Deloitte, where I worked with leading partners that served global accounts. And I did not take the risk of becoming an entrepreneur and kind of learning on the job. So it's a different trajectory. We encourage, obviously, very large risk taking for our entrepreneurs, but don't forget that you can do so much within large structures where you can build that experience and then translate. And then, as they say, there was a lot of research coming out that the successful entrepreneurs are actually in their 40s, late 30s, 40s, and that's, you know, after multiple iterations. Some of them had come out from the industry and then had a successful startup. Some had multiple startups and finally were really successful. But it does take a trajectory of experience, intersecting that with the opportunity and with your own self-transformation and your mindset to truly leverage the momentum to convert. And so to me, 20 years in corporate and professional setting was instrumental to be able to work with startups or with pre-IPO companies and see how the business systems must change, what the resource management should look like. So I'm not discouraging. My message is that entrepreneurship is exceptionally useful and an opportunity for our creative professionals to really implement and see themselves. But I think don't kind of discourage yourself from having a very good job, doing it exceptionally well and owning as your own company within a much larger system.
Right, and I can quickly follow up on the self-reflecting and self-analysis part, because I think the most complex component of it is that it's not a skill that you can learn from others. You can only learn it by yourself. So, and this is, and that's why it's a deep personal transformation instead of, you know, just acquiring new skills. And what helped me, and I think what's important here, is to focus on the feeling part. And I think there are, three questions that can help here. First question is that, do I feel a deep satisfaction from my life, from my relationships, from my work? The second question is that, do I feel a deep meaning in my activities, in my work, in my relationships? And the third one is that, do I do something right? Do I do and right in the morally right sense? Am I correct? Am I right in doing that? And the right here is try to align with your own moral.
Self-congruence, that's a call.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is a great
Yeah.
segue to the question Diana asks: what were the values and principles that guided you throughout your careers? So maybe very quickly, if you can pinpoint specific things which really help you to and guided you, I mean, those values and principles, Lucy.
For me, I mentioned the kind of self-imposed standard of excellence, which actually became something that was appreciated in every journey. So I hold myself to a standard. If I do it, I will do the best I can. It won't many times be perfect. It will reflect every effort that I put into the task and thinking through it and accomplishing it and doing above my pay grade. So am I contributing exceptionally, and is my contribution outstanding regardless of what role I have or what is my pay level? So never allow myself to fall back and say, I'm an analyst, this is my pay, you know, I do more than enough, the company or my boss or something. I do it, I make sure that I later learned to make sure that it's actually visible. Sometimes it wasn't, or others had taken credit for it, but I became a lot more vocal in making sure that the credit is given where it's due, but contribute above and beyond the level I am at or in, and then a high degree of integrity. So I bring, in communication and interactions with me, I'm pretty straightforward. So if I can do something and I commit, I will make every effort. If I cannot, I will say that I cannot, or I will refer and help others to be able to support or address, but also a certain honesty that people expect from me, and my job actually requires high degree of trust, high degree of integrity. So those are the main principles that support my professional career, but also reflect my natural personality.
Michael, how about yourself?
For me, like with Lucina, very high standards. So I do things not to reach standards set by others, but I have my own standards that I set them very high. And so that is an important element for me. The other thing that I've discovered over a number of years is I feel I derive the most happiness and feel the best when I'm giving rather than receiving. And so now I look back, we started a biotech company and we helped to create drugs that help people, to cure diseases, to help people get better. Then after that, now I'm back at AUA, and one of the reasons is because I want to help develop the next generation. I'm teaching at the university. I'm being a mentor to the next generation. Again, it fits the same model. It gives me the most pleasure and the most satisfaction by giving and making others, getting the satisfaction of others learning, growing, and moving forward.
Vadim?
Right. In my case, I can totally second the high standards and ownership here, and I think that's a very interesting observation on this panel. And for me, it's also deep empathy to people. But by people, I mean both others and myself, and I believe that's extremely important here.
Yeah.
It's also honesty with yourself, your passions, and honesty with what you don't like, and I think that's very important. The negative side is very important here as well, and following my gut feeling, following my intuition.
Totally agree with everyone. Actually, a couple days ago when I did this speech keynote, essentially I point out in terms of do above and beyond, because you have very short time to live and to contribute to. So whatever you do, first and foremost, you're doing it first for yourself, not for anyone else. So take the most out of whatever you do, even if it seems like boring office job. Learn something, invent something. Integrity, it's the key aspect. Learn and give, it comes all together because it's driving your internal full satisfaction and why you do what you do. We have also another question from Susanna, and she asks, as your successful career path comes from the changes within you during the life journey, what kept you motivated during the tough times? This is a very important piece because, and I'll just comment very quickly, this is the big question which I ask myself first and foremost, but also entrepreneurs when I consider investment or I consider advice or long journey with them, because that's exactly what kind of motivates, understanding what drives these people, what will keep them going through tough times will, you know, enable the success of the company, of the person, or as a professional or the career. So give us some perspective from your side, Michael.
Sure. So I'll use two words, okay, in terms of motivation during tough times. One is fear and the other is hope, okay? Fear is something that can motivate you like nothing else. And it's not so much fear for myself, but fear that failure or the difficult times will affect others. I can take failure, but it's the impact on others. And then in terms of hope, it's just being optimistic, having confidence in yourself that you'll be able to work something out, figure something out, and something that we all know, again, from entrepreneurship, which is never to give up. To keep on fighting to the end and never to give up. So for me, it's both fear and hope.
Well, the tough times, they have been many. I think, you know, when I was 17, first arriving in the US, I left very dark, very difficult situation in Armenia. Graduating, school with candle lights and no electricity, no water, and just completely devastated country, right? You remember Michael was there in 91, 92, God, and you as well. And so, I think it's that pledge to that 17-year-old self that I gave when I got on the ticket, got this ticket to come to the US. I didn't know where I was going. The reputation the US had at that time was, in the former Soviet countries was not stellar. So there was a lot of fear. Where am I going as a 17-year-old young girl with limited knowledge of English, good knowledge of mathematics, and no connections and no money? So I remember I left with $70, which was everything that everyone I knew was able to collect and give me in cash. And, as I arrived in rural Ohio, I gave a pledge to myself that I will be my biggest supporter for the rest of my life. No one will support and have more empathy for myself than self. And regardless what happens, I will never give up on myself. And I think that concept has really helped in the really bad times and very difficult situations. Ability to self-love, to self-rejuvenate, regenerate, transform, and get back up and say, not to be overly self-critical, but be a good, exceptional, actually, supporter of your own self, was a main skill that that pledge allowed me to carry through.
Agree with you completely. That's also what put me on the path, that going through these tough times create uber resiliency inside of me. And I remember when I myself arrived to US, also with a few dollars in the pocket, as we say, but that particular resilience create a different perspective, which allows you to go through, uncharted territories for you personally, for your family, and for your career. Vadim, please share your perspective too.
Well, I totally agree with the rejuvenation and regeneration part and the self-resilience, because it's definitely extremely important here. And well, I think if you don't feel it in yourself, it would be great to explore it, to self-reflect on it more. If you want to go into the entrepreneurship part. I would like to add also the feeling of your own personal history. So just a quick, I would like to leave it as a metaphor because we're running out of time, but just a quick example. In my case, I just from my personal history, I just see that if I follow the deep empathy to people, and if I follow my gut feeling, everything works out somehow. If I don't, it doesn't work. Well, it works, but it's not the way.
Maybe I can also add from my side, my suggestion and my advice, looking back at my 30-year career, which I consider I made pretty much on uncertainty, embracing uncertainty. So right. Fear, everyone is going through the fear, but risks and uncertainty, don't afraid of it. Actually consider how you can take and really transform that uncertainty into something which is upside, professional side, career as an entrepreneur. And again, I'm an example where by taking career on something very unique, uncharted territories, taking something which is unstructured, kind of formalized, and really making something very unique and big. That's one example. We have very last question. I want to read the question and we conclude. And Lucine is asking, how do you see the future? Maybe very quickly, how would you see the future? I mean, open-ended question, but.
It's an uncharted territory. I mean, look what's going on around the world from every aspect of, we're in the midst of COVID, but even beyond that, just where we are going as the earth and the population of the earth and the countries. I think the future for Armenia is bright. I think the technologies and the focus of Armenia are allowing Armenia to get a disproportionate contribution to the world in terms of the brand that the country can build, the talent that the country with very small population on a global scale, kind of outsized contribution to the world. If we leverage all the best qualities of what Armenian culture brings, our friendliness, our desire to excel, our contribution and creativity, the innovation, where we need to really focus to be able to compete is to truly become critical of our gaps. Where do we need to quickly get additional expertise, knowledge, connections, network? How do we scale and truly address kind of global markets in order for us to have headquarters in Armenia, but markets outside, and build the jobs and the structures that would truly scale, and while we can maintain our cultural context and our welcomeness and our warmth, that is, differentiating factors for our culture and a huge strength globally. I think I would call to all Armenian women to find more courage and risk-taking in ourselves. I had to get through that, and I did that outside of Armenia, but I think we have exceptionally talented Armenian women, Armenians in general, but especially Armenian women, and I think Armenian women are underrepresented in so many areas in the talent, skills, education, personality traits that we bring to the table that are actually globally very valuable. So don't underestimate yourself. Don't set low expectations for yourself. It is hard. I would say it's harder than if I were a male in this profession. I have 3 children and a large family and a very kind of, several jobs that are a lot of responsibility, but hold yourself to that standard. Get help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Structure it in a way where you can be effective, productive, but do not lower yourself that, I cannot do this. I'm not the right person to do it. I'm a female, etc. I cannot tell you, this is a separate session more on women leadership, but how incredible our background and our education as Armenian females position us to be successful on the global arena.
Vadim, you are not only how you see, you're actually creating the future of precision medicine, so with single cells. So tell us how you see the future.
Well, you see, and that's why I would like to give an unorthodox answer here, because I think what would be interesting here to ask yourself, what do you mean by that, and why do you ask the question about the future? And let me close my answer here.
Yeah, you impact your future. Every step you take, it will come back to you. It will shape your future. Michael.
I want to really build on what Lucinda has said, not only in terms of overall all the things we can do and have to do, but in addition, the role of women, women in our lives, women in our history. And if we look back, we see what a great role women have had in our history. And so,
partnership they bring.
In so many different ways, in so many different ways. In the First Republic of Armenia, Armenian women have the right to vote and were actually in the parliament before they had the right to vote and were in the parliament of the United States. Okay, that shows something about our culture and about our history and our values. But I would just say one statement, that we should build our own future ourselves. We should not wait for anyone to build it for us. Not the government, not our strategic partners, no one else. The 3 prongs, Armenia, Artsakh, and the diaspora, we know what we have to do. We just have to do it and do it ourselves. And we have to have the faith in ourselves to be successful.
I can't thank our panel. We're out of time. Really, thank you very much for joining and definitely participants who watched us live and who will be watching the recording. So I appreciate, and the future is bright. So let's go and do it. Let's make it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.